friend. Calliope watched as green zeros and ones flooded her vision before focusing on the room she was in. A technician sat in front of her. He was fairly petite compared to her own height, but said,
"All right, Calliope. Blink if you can understand me."
Calliope did as she was instructed, the thick black metal of her swirling lashes lightly ringing against one another.
"Perfect.
The technician said.
Now, raise your right arm and wave at me."
Calliope did. A jingling filled the air. She looked at her wrist, where blue ribbons with gold bells were attached. She couldn't help but giggle to herself. The sound was high and musical, with only a slight electronic tone.
"Great. Now the other one,"
the technician said with a warm smile. Calliope again examined the blue ribbon around her wrist and briefly played a vaguely jingle bells tempo.
"You're doing great. Ready to try to stand up?"
Calliope nodded and heard the whir of the action in her neck. The technician offered her both his hands, which she took carefully in hers. She was aware that she was much stronger than the human and could seriously injure him without much effort. She stood with his help, but didn't really need it. Another jingling sound came from the floor. She looked down at the curled red toes of her shoes before tapping her feet rhythmically. The technician laughed delightedly. Calliope liked that. It made her smile.
"You have a lovely grin, but let's see if that is all your mouth does. Can you tell me your name?"
I am Calliope, she replied with an affectionate chime.
"All right, I think you're ready,"
the technician said.
"Follow me, and I will show you where you'll be working."
Calliope skipped lightly behind her technician friend as they exited the cold steel and wires of the basement level. They entered into a world of sound and color. Humans ran this way and that, laughing and playing. Some of the littlest ones noticed her and waved as she passed. She returned their enthusiasm. The floors were covered in swirls of purple, blue, and maroon. She traced the pattern with her eyes. The technician led her to a big sliding door with a sun and moon on it. Calliope could hear music playing inside and clapped her hands excitedly. It was a jaunty tune, full of funny noises. The gate slid up with a clatter, and the pair stepped into a lobby where two gold statues stood. They were similarly designed to herself, and she pointed to them curiously.
"That's who you'll be working with,"
the technician explained. She walked around the statues. One was a smiling golden being with open arms. She wandered to the back and noticed the crouching figure. Something about him bothered her. This statue was also smiling, but it struck her as more malevolent than the other. She frowned. The technician noticed her pause.
"That's Moondrop. He's basically who you're replacing. He isn't right."
Calliope watched the statue a second longer, then turned towards the view behind her. A large playground and ball pit were just beyond. "Can we go play?" she asked excitedly.
"After you meet Sundrop."
The technician laughed and led her through a service door. They took the stairs down into the daycare. The floor was padded, and Calliope jumped on it because she liked the different texture.
"Sonny!"
called the technician towards a balcony at one end of the room, which resided over the rainbow-colored balls. Calliope turned to watch for a moment as Sundrop leapt from the balcony. He was graceful, and his bells made a different sound than hers. They were a bit lower pitch. Once her co-worker climbed out of the pit, he came over happily.
"Hello, Sammy. Who's your friend?"
Calliope liked the noise his voice made. It was more electric sounding than her own, but she couldn't help but notice something else in it. She scanned Sundrop curiously. Her vision listed off attributes like name, height, special talents, and finally state of mind. Nervous, it read.
This is Calliope.
Sammy introduced her. She smiled brightly and offered her hand. Sundrop looked at her outstretched hand but didn't take it.
And why is she here?
Calliope noticed as he seemed to fidget. She grimaced.
To help you, there's been some concern about your patients lately, and the higher-ups decided this might be a good solution.
We don't need help!
Sundrop said a little sharply. We? Calliope asked.
Moondrop,
Sammy responded to her question.
who can't help right now? Or at least shouldn't be helping. Right, Sonny?
Sammy folded his arms across his chest and raised an eyebrow. Calliope didn't understand the posture, so scanned him. Concerned, the scan informed her as Sundrop waved his hands back and forth in a brief panic.
Oh no! Of course not! The lights stay on.
Good. Then you won't mind the help.
Sammy said, and reached up to Calliope, who took his hands in response.
Be good. Have fun.
Of course, she responded, then waved him goodbye as he left. Sundrop wasn't happy, but didn't argue farther.
All right, fine.
His beams spun as he and Calliope locked eyes.
Welcome, new friend.
Calliope raised an eyebrow. You don't have to pretend. Sundrop glared at her.
Looky here, we don't need you, but let's go over the basics. 1. The lights stay on. Do you understand? On?
Calliope nodded. Because when the lights go out, you become Moondrop? Sundrop looked horrified and put a hand over her mouth.
Shh, we don't say that name in here anymore.
If Calliope wasn't mistaken, she was pretty sure Sundrop seemed a little sad about that. The fear was definitely more prevalent, however. Okay. She agreed.
Second, the kids arrive at 7 a.m. every morning. Some of them even arrive earlier if they've made special arrangements beforehand.
Calliope nodded again.
Third, keep the daycare clean and follow the rules. In fact, maybe you should just stay in that area and keep out of my way.
Sundrop pointed to a dusty-looking corner that was covered in pillows and blankets.
That's the nap time zone.
Sundrop frowned as he stared at it. Calliope was pretty sure she was starting to understand. Nap time must have been Moondrop's job before he broke. Why haven't they disassembled you? She asked suddenly. It seems only logical that they should if one of your files is corrupted.
Rude!
Sundrop said, dodging her question.
You can charge over there too if you need. The grand reopening is tomorrow. Try not to make a mess.
With that, Sundrop left Calliope alone. She had no need to charge. She'd just woken up, so she wandered into the nap time area and started dusting everything. As she moved from one side of the small area to the other, she felt something snag on her back. What the... She felt around for a minute, until she realized she was hooked to some kind of cable. What's this? She asked. She ran at the wall and up onto it. As she reached the maximum length of the cable, she fell away from the wall and flew. She squealed in delight. Whee! She flew a circle around the whole room until she saw Sundrop watching her.
What are you doing? Get down from there!
Calliope was taken aback by how upset Sundrop appeared to be. She knew he didn't really want her there, but his distress seemed a bit on the dramatic side to her. She quickly landed on his balcony and said, "Sorry, I got caught." Sundrop let out an exasperated sound.
Turn around.
Calliope did, and he unhooked her.
Don't play with this.
He told her.
It's not yours.
Calliope was silent as he attached the cable to a ring beside his curtains. Sundrop said nothing else and entered his room. As the curtains moved, she could just make out a slice of his bedroom. It was a mess, and directly inside was a Moondrop doll. She frowned. Oh! Calliope stepped onto the balcony railing and jumped off exactly as she had seen Sundrop do. The air rushed past her until she hit the plastic cushion of the balls, breaking her fall. She laid there for a while, staring up at the balcony and ceiling beyond. She really wanted to be Sundrop's friend if he would just let her. But Calliope also understood that her new co-worker was lost without his other half. Not to mention, scared of even connecting with it, since it had started to malfunction. She sighed. She would just have to prove that she was helpful, and even more importantly, reliable. She swam her way out of the balls with light patting sounds and returned to her spot. She sat against one wall, her legs folded beneath her. She could see that the nap time corner was full of sleepy time and relaxation methods. There was a blank white wall and projector to make shadow puppets, a variety of stuffed animals and storybooks. But what her eyes finally settled on was a music box. She felt lighter as she picked up the box and began cranking the little handle. It played Rockabye Baby, but Calliope couldn't help but notice the odd plink of wrong notes. She took the box in her hands and carefully opened it to make repairs and tune it. By the time she had finished, it was about 3 a.m. She closed her eyes to charge for a while before the daycare actually opened.